had a conversation with a friend a couple of nights ago, and we were talking generally about English and English education. I usually have my pet peeves about Russian school education and whether or not it's viable or the purpose of it. But the question came up about what was the most difficult part of English. What was the most difficult grammar to get a hold of and to understand? And my friend said that to her, the most difficult thing was learning perfect. She said that this was the thing that always killed her. I'm not really convinced that that's true. In fact, in my opinion, the most difficult thing for native Russian speakers to learn is what you would call continuous. Now, before I get on with this wonderful theory of mine, I just want to say that in practical English, I don't really like to use these names. Yes, I understand it's the common name of this particular type of grammar. But I also think that learning these names and these particular different types of ideas, like a list, as if what we call them is the most important thing, it misses the main point, which is that we're supposed to know what they mean, what their function is, what they represent to us. And I think at the basis, what her problem was in school was that she was asked to learn the name and then maybe, the words that were used. But she was never actually told what it meant or how it functioned. And certainly, where you would use it. That would be the number one thing I think that would drive everyone crazy. So, how do we explain this to people? All right. Well, the first thing, and this is the great mistake in the Russian educational system, is you try to learn this abstractly. You take the name, you say, okay, we're going to talk about perfect now, and then you say, well, the modal verb for this one is have, and then we use the third form, or we use the second form, and then you have to memorize this terminology. And then they show you some examples, and then they show you a Russian translation. But where are we? You see, this is the genuine question that needs to be asked. When all of this stuff is going on, where exactly are we? What is the context? Are we telling a story? Are we talking philosophy? What conversation are we in that this would be used? And I don't think that ever comes up. And then we come up with the second problem, and this is the bigger problem. And this is the idea of context. Russian is a wonderful language. Nobody's saying anything about Russian. But what it is it's what we might call a general language. I've heard it also described as a futureless language. And what this means is that there is no particular time represented in the verbs, as in English. In other words, what we care about in Russian is whether a verb is finished or not finished, and then there are some nuances by adding prepositions into the verb. But people speak generally. In fact, people talk about everything generally. And this is just simply not the case in English. English has a much different context. So to talk about this, the first thing we have to understand is, where are we right now? Now, in my case, I am walking into the market here in Pinsk. Dobre utro. Dobre jest paket. Okay. No. Because I want to get some stuff to make some soup. But what we could also say about this place and time is that it's now. Now is here. Hey, доброе утро.
Здорово.
Как оно?
Нормально, живем потиху.
Отлично, отлично, я тоже.
Тоже это хорошо.
Super. Okay, so we are now here in the market, okay? And it's, you know, whatever time in the morning. But this is now. And if we understand what now is, like for instance, if I were telling a story about when I went to the market, we could start with the idea of this moment and then simply understand that perfect means not now, somewhat earlier. Now, that's not difficult to understand. We could be talking about anything really, when I was at home, yesterday, any time particularly. But the most important thing... горький перец, я очень хочу.
Ну, берите, забирайте, я вам дешево отдам.
Ой, секунды, я с вами. Секунды. Okay. And that brings us to the last part of this. Why would we say «Доброе утро, Дашка»? Да, секунды. Да? А что у нас? Красивые грибы. Да, я слышал, что... лик, это хорошо. И... Ну, что у нас?
Шпинат.
Спинат есть?
Есть шпинат.
Хорошо. Это мой. Секунды.
Есть шалфей, есть... Разговаривайте.
Секунды, я с вами. Секунды, я с вами.
Не надо меня фотографировать.
No, окей, не буду. Okay. So that brings us to the problem of why continuous is more difficult to understand for Russian people. What continuous is basically is if we understand now, and we understand we're talking about being at the market at this time of the day, what we are talking about are these physical actions that are in process now. So, simply, when I was at the market, I was talking to Dasha and some friends. All of this is in process, in the context of now. This isn't in Russian. It isn't in Russian in the thought process, and it isn't in Russian in the grammar. So, I think the first thing to solve this problem about what is difficult or not difficult in English is to simply understand that we have a different context. Certainly we have a different place, but we have a different way of thinking about this time and space. And if we can teach this, and I certainly try to, we have a possibility of understanding. Thank you. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe, and of course share it with your friends. I hope to bring something interesting to this project, and of course let me know in the comments what you think about this. Cheers. Never, ever gonna change.